Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anthony Podcast. And today I'm joined by Andrew White from Leading Our Own Way. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I like what you're doing, by the way. I've kept my eye on you, son. You're doing wonderful things with the podcast. But thanks for having me. It's absolute honour to be on your show.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving me some of your time. A little peek behind the curtain. You were the main inspiration for me updating the podcast quality and using Riverside.
I love that. That's brilliant. I should earn some money from Riverside, shouldn't I?
Because before I used to use Zoom and Zoom, and
Oh,
don't get me wrong, Zoom is fine, but obviously Riverside is a bit more higher quality.
it's good. It makes life a bit easy for us amateur podcasters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We don't want Zoom to get angry at you, though.
Yeah, as I said, I still use Zoom because for some people it's just easier to use Zoom.
Yeah. No, I get that. I understand that. Yeah, but River Skies are good because it provides you the reels if you want some, and other little artistic approaches and stuff. Yeah, and I use that and just manipulate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we take this back, Andrew, what made you want to start leading our own way?
Oh, it's a bit of a journey, that one, man. It's been a long time coming, really. You can probably tell by my accent. I'm from Manchester, England, and I moved myself over to Australia many, many, many years ago. I'm in Melbourne, and it's night time here. Anthony, everybody had to just wait for me because I had to put my children to bed, so I apologise for that. Um, but what started leading our own way was a bit of my own personal journey. As I just mentioned, I moved to Australia in 2012. I'd already been here playing some basketball and a bit of travel around the world, and I went back to Manchester, worked in a high school teaching for a few years, and just I actually couldn't get on the teaching course in the UK to become a qualified teacher. I worked in a high school, but I was a non-qualified staff, and I pursued the Australian dream and came here as an international student. And once I graduated, I was back at the basketball club, by the way. So I'd done all, and I say that because it'll make sense in a minute. But all these things of chasing, the things you love to do, see the world, it takes an element of confidence and stepping into uncomfortability, and I moved to Australia and got my job, and I started teaching after the year study, what would be equivalent to the PGC in the UK. It's called a diploma of education here, and in the second year, this I won the National Teacher of the Year award. This is my plaque, if you will, and look, I am not by far the best teacher in Australia at that time. I would taken pieces of everybody and put it into my own journey and put my own flavour on how I think I could connect with people, students and adults and colleagues and so on. But I found myself after a few months going through some very difficult times at work. I found myself in a very toxic environment. I don't throw the word bullying around very lightly, but I found myself in a situation where I was being targeted every day, and I went into a bit of a dark space. I'm very much a connection person. I love to talk. I love to meet new people. I love to have a laugh on a daily basis. I love to connect with the people that I work with. And coming from England, it was only me and my partner, and I didn't have any children at that point. And I think you probably try a little bit harder to make friends, and colleagues were I suppose my life, because I'd spent all day there every day, and going through that toxic environment of bullying, and I'm here for hours to go through and dissect every little incident, and part of me has kind of gone over grey now. I've kind of chosen to forget those memories. I think when you go through trauma, it really affects you. But I was 32 at the time. I'd been through many experiences in my life. There's been plenty of moments, you just don't vibe or get along with somebody. So it was very crystal clear the significant difference between not getting along with somebody and being targeted every day. And I was in a dark space and questioning my ability, lost all confidence, became the shell of a person that I was. And I explained the other parts before, because traveling and going for the things you love in life and chasing your dreams, it takes an element of something, something about you, right? And that was all knocked out of me, completely knocked out of me. Throwing up before work, on 3 out of 4 days out of the week. And it was really, really hard. It was a real difficult time. When the truth eventually came out, my son, it kind of unleashed everything. And I went through a number of years of paranoia and anxiety. And sorry, I'm jabbering on here, Anthony. I apologize, but it was just a difficult time of workplace bullying. My son was born, and then I built this house where I'm currently living. It's 2 hours away from where that took place, but I went through many years of anxiety and paranoia after that. And then I got my dream job. I got my dream job. I was lucky enough to open a school from scratch, and I just found myself not in bullying, but just another unfortunate atmosphere every day, another toxic environment. And and sometimes you think, God, I'm the common denominator, I'm the problem. But I know I can live by my values that I tried every day, and I worked hard every day. And was I perfect? Absolutely not. Did I get things wrong? Absolutely, of course I did. But there's no one deserves to be spoken to like a piece of dirt, or pushed out of a scenario what you treat as your baby. And then once I'd left that place, 6 weeks later, I was rushed into hospital with septic shock in the bile duct, and I was 30 minutes potentially away from being in an induced coma. My partner got the phone call to say prepare for the worst. From that scenario, I had 2 children at this point. Me and a friend from Bury, I don't know if you know where Bury is, just outside of Manchester. I wrote the book How to Lead with Purpose with a good friend of mine from Manchester, and he kind of pushed me into it as a bit of a running joke. And we spent a couple of years writing that, and then I started to study. You can see all these books around me, the brain and human physiology, and I was just started talking, and I love talking, as you can probably tell for the last few minutes. And we can go deeper, but that was really where Leading Our Own Way started. I wanted to share people's journeys. I wanted to talk with no judgment, and anyone that gets attracted to the podcast will come, and if they don't want to, that's okay too. And if we can change, and I've kind of connected everything, if we can change and prevent mental health decline and cognitive decline, and people going into dark spaces, or people are just simply wanting to change their lives for the better and change, if they want to go from one career, create a business, whatever it may be. I think a lot of people can fall into the category of leading our own way because we all do it differently. And so I sat down for many years thinking, contemplating about doing it, what would be the concept, the core values. And my friend in America, who I met on a flight to New York back in 2001, she was supposed to fly on 9/11. And obviously 9/11 happened, and she couldn't fly from England back to New York. And I met her on a flight in December, and she's in broadcasting, and she is the person I've been friends with ever since. And she bought this mic and sent it to me and said, "Get going. Enough's enough. We've been talking about this for a year. Get the podcast going." And that's where it exists.
So I have a lot of questions. So if you go back a little bit to what you first said, what made you want to get into teaching in the first place?
Oh, that's a good question. Growing up playing basketball, I played in Manchester, and I'd been coaching since the age of about 13. So I was coaching, 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds in early and late primary school, towards the end of primary school, and I don't know, I just enjoyed coaching the kids basketball. I was a basketball player, playing for Manchester Giants and Manchester Magic, and then Stockport Falcons. But I was always coaching the younger age groups. Went to the national finals with a good friend of mine, Dave Bonnick. He was the head coach. I was the assistant coach for the under 16s. We made it to the final fours, to the national finals 2 years in a row. So I always coach kids. Then as you get older and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I always wanted to work in marketing. Loved the idea of working with people, getting into people's mindsets, I did something at university regarding that, but you know what it's like at university. I was drinking a lot and partying, and I didn't, and I realised I didn't want to be in marketing or IT at that time. I needed to be out and about, but marketing came to me, but it just didn't. I tried to get into it, and it was very competitive, and I realised I'm not going to necessarily go where I want to go. So I went back to the basketball days, coaching younger ones, and I thought, well, how can I make that into my career? So sports development was on my mind. I went to college and did leisure management, and I was a lifeguard during college and university. But the kids always kind of drawn me back, and I thought, well, maybe I could be a PE teacher, and that's when I tried to get on the course in the UK. But I wanted to be able to. I love traveling. And I know this is cliche. A lot of people, some teachers become because they want the holidays. That wasn't it. But a small percentage, I would be able to get out, go traveling still, have some good holidays. But I really wanted to connect with children. But I'm kind of coming out of teaching now because I've realised, the connection to children now. The department and the job itself is so much around everything else opposed to the 6 hours you're supposed to teach, But that's why I got into teaching, because I was wanting to make a difference, and it stems back to making that difference, I suppose. But I've definitely learned with maturity and growing older, I can still do that just in a different way. And I suppose that is the podcast and the book, But that's why I got into teaching, probably from the basketball end of things, really, more than the academic. So that's where PE teaching came in. But I'm not a PE teacher. I just work in the primary schools and teach, writing and maths and so on. But I probably deep down is probably not my thing,
So, do you know when you're having your problems with your colleagues, when you're being spoke down to and basically being bullied, how did that affect your teaching ability?
It was a daily. I've been speaking about that a lot recently, that whole putting a mask on every day. Once I got through that, throwing up in the morning, you go to work, and the colleagues still to this day probably don't know the mask I was putting on, every single day, putting that mask on. I still felt I was a good teacher, but I definitely lost myself as a person, as a partner, as a father. So I probably wasn't myself. But that true reflection, it would be brilliant to see a fly on the wall back in that classroom of Andy teaching during the time of bullying, because you're in such a dark space. It's really, really difficult to even answer that question properly. When I think about it and the pride that I put into teaching, I'd like to say my teaching wasn't affected, but I remember the darkness that I felt. It probably was affected. But to be able to answer in a true reflection going, yeah, I was the worst teacher. No, I was a worse version of myself, which probably did impact my teaching. But I'd like to think the children still got what they needed, but I don't know if I can ever fully answer that properly, because it's really, really hard to reflect on that. Because it's actually 10 years ago as well, it's quite a long time ago too. But yeah, no, I probably was affected, and I was probably guessing, and I was chipping away every day to get through and counting the minutes and counting the hours. So, when you bring all of that into it, my teaching was probably very affected, but it took me a long time to recover from that, really.
I imagine from your perspective, you probably thought I'm doing okay, but to the people on the outside, when I mean okay, I mean like you probably thought I'm doing a good job as a teacher, even though I'm going through this horrible experience. But people on the outside probably thought Andrew's not performing as well as he could do.
I mean that could have been the case. But I really deep down don't think they knew the depth of what I was going through, because they couldn't see it happening. Gaslighting. They didn't realize the depth in how much I was hurting. So the flip side to that is maybe I was a good actor. Maybe they didn't see what I was going through. Because a good friend of mine actually didn't realize how deep it was until she physically saw something happen, and that's how the truth came out. I was pushed in the shoulder here by that person in front of the students and in front of the colleague who's still a good friend, and she got along with that person, and I got along with that person the year before. It was a complete shock to me. So I think I masked it really, really well, because I think most people understood. Now I went through a dark place, but they didn't. They probably just thought I deep down my gut feeling is that they just thought I didn't get along with somebody, and that bit went too far. But they don't realize what that person did to destroy my soul every day.
When still teaching primary children, like young children, or was it like teenagers or?
Yeah, it was primary school. It was here in Australia. It was grade 5 and 6. So it was, they would have been, 11 years old. Yeah.
So, so, so once you got to the point where you had to go into a hospital, yeah, did you ever consider leaving the profession?
Yeah, well, that was years later. So that was March 22. So I built up over those years. Like I mentioned before, I was suffering with a lot of anxiety and paranoia. I really wasn't Andy White. That was Andy White before, moving to the side of the world and doing all these things, wanting to chase your dream, and my partner supporting me and all of that. It was after 6 weeks after opening that school. That was another stressful environment, and it was the compounding of all that decade, those 7-8 years come together. And because before I was sponsored by the school, so I couldn't leave the school. I was sponsored to stay in Australia, so it wasn't like a normal person could just quit your job. Some people have said to me, well, why don't you just quit your job? Well, it wasn't that easy, because I was sponsored, so a lot of paperwork, a lot of money that we'd paid to stay in Australia through the visa that I was on at the time. But when I went through the school that I created, or I didn't create, but I was part of a small team that we did create together. That's when it was 6 weeks later. So that was March 2022. So, just over 3.5 years ago. I'd left that job to become a casual teacher, because casual teaching provides me physical, mental, and emotional space. It gets rid of the stress of the job, but I get to teach, walk out at the end of the day, and I don't know where I am the next day, unless you've got, a week block at a school. And I needed that mental space. I needed everything to come out. But because I was that relaxed, that's when my body started to speak to me. And I thought it was just anxiety attacks, because I was suffering with anxiety attacks. I got rushed into the hospital. My doctor, who's a friend of mine, actually got an ambulance. We went in. The hospital cleared any issues with the heart. They did the test and they said the heart's healthy. Now I went home and went back to my friend the next day. We booked loads of scans for the day later. That was a Wednesday. This was a Thursday, and then Friday morning I wake up and I didn't get up till midday. My appointment was at 1:00. I couldn't move, and my partner said, "You're jaundiced." Like, I was fully orange. So I rang my friend. This part of the story is pretty cool, because he was getting married that day, and I didn't know. He didn't tell me. It was a cultural, the cultural of their religion is that they get married and so they can live with each other, and it's a very close ceremony, and it was just secretive. I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but he tells me weeks later he got married that day, so he was actually late to his own wedding to save my life. Anyway, I phoned him to tell him. And he said, "Don't even pack a bag. Get your ass to hospital." So we got down to hospital very, very quickly, and they realised sepsis had set in. And later that night, coming out of COVID, they phoned my partner, because she wasn't allowed in hospital at that point. We'd come out of COVID, but people still weren't allowed in hospital other than the patients. But to answer your question, because I've kind of gone off on a different tangent, I've stayed in casual teaching ever since. I've never gone back to the workplace full time. I'm still a casual teacher, because it gives me this space to create the podcast and meet people like yourself and all my wonderful guests as well. you know, I can switch off. Like tonight, I came home from work, I switched off, I was with the family, and then I get to do this at night, and I'm not stressed thinking about the workplace, you know. So yeah.
So do you know the term casual casual teacher? Is that just another word for a substitute, basically? So if somebody's poorly or something, they'll call you up and say, can you come and do this? Or is it something completely different?
Yeah, and so being in Australia for 13 and a half years, my language slightly changed, but yes, it's the same as a substitute teacher in the UK, yeah. So casual teaching here is the same as substitute. We call it a CRT, casual relief teacher. So yes, I'm a CRT, a substitute teacher for your English audience, and I have a great relationship with the agency. I go to different schools. I go to the same schools, but on different days. I have a great relationship with a bank of schools, and I get paid a higher rate because of my length of service. I've been teaching for a long time, and you know, for 6 hours a day, home by 3:30, 4 o'clock. I have a great wage. Yeah, I don't get paid for the holidays, but if that's my biggest stress, so be it. You know, I will never. I can categorically say I will never go back to teaching full time. Yeah.
So I imagine you have to be well, you have to be well rounded, you have to be well rounded on a variety of different subjects.
Yeah, I mean, you know, being a primary school teacher, things change constantly, but I understand the curriculum very well. I understand how to connect with people, connect with strangers that I've not met, meaning the children and then the colleagues. I've got my confidence there set. I have my humour that I bring to the table. Like I say, I know the curriculum pretty well, so I understand, you know, text types and maths and how to teach the different ages. So, yeah, you know, I have a knowledge around the writing compounds and the text types and all that type of thing. Yeah, so that's not really a worry anymore. The only thing, the curriculum has changed in the sense in how they teach now. The modern world seems to be teaching from scripts. Teachers, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but here, and I believe it's the same, but we're reading from scripts more and more and more. So teachers are losing their art to connect because they're reading from a script. And for me, that's very off-putting, and I lose my art and my energy. And so I don't agree with that, but I guess that's a different episode.
I'm probably not the best person to talk about that with, because I don't have a clue, to be honest, about teaching.
Yeah, sure. I no, I understand that. Yeah, no, but you never know. You might have some teachers listening to the podcast and go, "Oh, yep, I know what he's talking about."
I'm actually friends with a couple of teachers, but we never talk about teaching.
Oh, well, you should do. Now you've had this conversation, maybe you should ask them, yeah. Where are you in Birmingham, by the way?
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, I'm in Birmingham, that's what I'm going to say now. I don't want to go into any more detail, because, you know, there's a lot of weird people out there, so I'm just going to say, yes, I'm in Birmingham, yeah.
Well, I'm from Manchester. I won't tell you my street either.
So because you came from teaching, I imagine that made it slightly easier for you when it came to connecting with people as a podcaster.
Say that again, sorry. Connecting to people, what, sorry?
So let me start. I imagine because you came from a teaching background, that really helped you in terms of connecting with people as a podcaster and telling their stories.
Yeah, I guess so. I've always been, even before teaching, I think that's what why I was attracted to teaching, because I love to talk and connect with people. You know, I think that's what we should be doing as educators and the department. We should be looking for people who can talk and connect with people. You know, I do believe I can make anyone a good teacher, but it's really hard for me to teach you how to connect with people. You know, that comes from within, you know, your childhood, how you've been brought up, your values, what your purpose is in life. You know, are you happy in life? You know, are you connecting with people? Are you able to, you know, talk? But yeah, I think you're right. I think the teaching experiences have helped. I mean, it's certainly part of the reason why the podcast exists. You know, if I hadn't gone through what I went through, the podcast probably wouldn't exist. You know, I mean, very interested to know why you started your podcast too.
So basically, it was during the pandemic. and obviously everybody was in lockdown, and I was just, if I'm being honest, I just needed something to do,
Love that.
and I thought, why not give it a go?
And you're
And
still going?
yeah, and I was following a lot of podcasts, so I thought, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
Couldn't agree more, Ant. Couldn't agree more. Do you just do it on your own, or do you have a team working for you?
No, everything I do with the podcast is down to me. That's why sometimes it might not look the best, it might not sound the best, but I'm doing it all myself.
I think it looks great, my friend. I think it does. I mean, I look at your front cover as well. I love that front cover. That's great. It just sums you right up, mate. No, I love it.
Yeah,
I do everything myself too, and it's hard work, isn't it?
yeah. I like, I don't think people underestimate what the amount of work that goes into it behind the scenes. Like
Yeah.
having to email people, and then people cancel, and then people cancel on you last minute, and then people will have to change days, and then you have to contact somebody else to see whether they can do a different time, and it can be a right nightmare sometimes, but I still enjoy it nonetheless.
That's all that matters, isn't it? Absolutely. And you're right. They're the problems of our podcasting world, aren't they? You're absolutely right. The editing and the artwork that goes into it, and yeah, the sound, and but hopefully Riverside's made that easy for you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely so. And I know sometimes it can be a bit frustrating when you've done all this research, and then people cancel on you last minute. By the end of the day, that's life, and you just have to deal with it.
I mean, you do. It's sad. Does that happen? How often do you film? How often do you like to film?
I like to film as much as I can.
Yeah.
Like during the pandemic, I was recording pretty much every other day because
Wow.
people had nothing to do. But nowadays, obviously, it's a lot slower because people have busy lives.
Yeah. Do you film with people all over the world?
I try to.
Yeah, cool. I hope I'm your furthest one now. And
Yeah,
uh,
you're probably the first person from Australia. I would love to get more people from Australia on, but it's just difficult with the time difference.
can be, yeah, yeah, you can be. I find 8:30 my time is a good time for everybody else because they're either in the UK, they're working from home, so they can chop out for a couple of hours and film, or I film with people here in Australia anyway. But America, I have to wait till the weekends, and I tend to get up early in the morning and film with them because it's their Saturday afternoon. So I feel like I've worked out the different locations of where to kind of fit them in.
I I find the American time difference not too bad, to be honest, in
Yeah.
comparison to the Australian one.
Was that did this work out okay for you this time though? Was that okay?
Yeah, no, yeah, this time was no problem for me.
Beautiful. Good. I'm glad I didn't wake you up, Ant.
I've been awake since 5, so don't worry
5?
about it.
Were you
Yeah,
excited about recording with me?
yeah, I was, but that was not the reason. So, we go back to your first episode. I think it was with your friend called Jake, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
you have done your research, haven't you? Wow. Yes,
So,
Jake.
so as you were preparing for that first conversation, what was going through your mind?
Ooh, you know it's That's a great question. Never thought about that before. I don't remember, if I'm honest, because for my 40th, I came home from work, and this studio didn't look how it does now, but I had all my mic set up there. The table, this wasn't the table. Or maybe it was at the time, I don't know. I didn't have it. I didn't have the mic switched on, but I had it set up but not switched on. I just got my Mac, and he drove. He lives 2.5 hours away from me, and I met him in Manchester. He's from Melbourne, and he came and surprised me for my 40th. Drove all the way down. I didn't even have a party or anything like that, but he wanted to come and see me on my 40th. I mean, how cool was that? He comes down, and we do a little fake interview. And it's both of us sat together, Jake and I, and he has an incredible story, an incredible journey, and we just randomly spoke. I'm wearing this blue tartan shirt. He's sat on a chair here. This is not on, but it's in the middle of us, and I'm just randomly going for it, just saying the intention of where we're going to go, and could he give us a teaser about his journey so I can hook people in. Now, I didn't publish for another 5 months after that, and I filmed with him in the January, but didn't publish my first episode until the April. But the first 10 episodes, I think maybe 7 out of the 10 were friends, you know. But to answer your question, I really don't know what went through my mind, if I'm honest. I was just so excited. I don't do much prep. I do a bit of a pre-chat and I go through dot points with them. But I only knew his story. But I did learn a lot more about him in that journey. And it just touched my heart so much. I'm so proud of even what Jake's doing today. If you do know, he's a world arm wrestling commentator and travels the world arm wrestling commentating. He's got a great YouTube channel. And I don't care for arm wrestling, but he makes it enjoyable. He makes me tune into it. And I'm just so proud of what he does and that he's leading his own way. He's not, going to work every day, being told what to do and when to go to the toilet and all that stuff. He's doing his thing, and it's awesome. And I was very proud that he was my debut guest. It was such an honor because he ran pretty much all around Australia to raise money for breast cancer. Like, incredible. Absolutely incredible. But I don't remember the thoughts. I was just so excited about getting this launched. Get filming, get talking. Don't worry about how it all looks. This has just kind of grown into its own over the time, but I didn't care how it looks. I just made sure my audio didn't get messed up and went from there with Jake, and it just kind of flew from there, yeah.
So I watched that little introduction video that today just as a little refresher, and I remember, as we all do when we first start, you constantly had your daughter in the background. I think it was your daughter anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. That was teaser. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon. Everyone was here, so I didn't worry about the noise in the background. But now, if I record, I make sure the kids are in bed. That's the one thing. Empty house, quiet house for the recording. But pre-chats, it doesn't matter. I just talk, and it doesn't matter if there's noise in the background. But yeah, you have been listening and tuning in, haven't you?
I always like to go back and do a little research. I know you prefer to do like a pre-interview chat. Why do you prefer to do it like that? Do you just find that more personal, or is it just easier for you?
I've done 1 or 2 without a pre-chat, and they work just as well. One of them was a friend, so it didn't matter about the connection. I think I do the pre-chat because if they decide to go off, at least where I know to pull them back. Now, in the pre-chat, I have a process. I explain why the podcast exists, because I don't want to necessarily share that in the episode because it's not about me. I've shared it today because this is about us, right? Of course, it's slightly different. But with my guests, in the pre-chat, I share why I've created the podcast. I spend 5 minutes just explaining why, because I don't want people to think the podcast exists for the sake of creating a podcast. I wanted it to be, meaning connecting. I wanted them to understand the connection to my journey. And then I run through the structure of the episode, and then I kind of just take dot points of their life and I tell them very explicitly, I don't want to know everything. That's why I don't do too much research, because I don't want I want my reactions to be authentic. When I react to them an emotional point, I want to be, no, I don't want to be shocked, but I want the questions authentically, I suppose, to come through. And but don't get me wrong, that pre-chat does allow me to create some questions, like where your benefit is of doing the research. You've obviously got some nice questions prepared there, which I was like, oh, I never thought of that before. That was pretty cool that you've done it, and it made me feel good. So yeah, I think, and the most important one for me is connection. I want the chat to make it. I want people to look and go, oh, these guys have been friends for a long time, right? I want it to feel like just a nice flow, and I think the pre-chat offers that, especially when I'm interviewing people I've never met personally before. But having said that, we've never spoken on camera before, have we? I feel like it's pretty relaxed and nice, so maybe it does work.
And I think when it comes to me and you speaking, because we've sent video message, not video, but audio messages, back and forth, that can also make it a bit easier as well, because you can pick up how I speak and I can pick up how you speak it, and it can just flow better.
Agreed. And that's, I suppose, it's the same philosophy of why the pre-chat exists for me, yeah. I probably could do a lot more interviews if I didn't do the pre-chats, to be honest, but you know what, I've stuck with it, and it's worked, and I have no reason to change it, I suppose, going forward.
Everybody has their own format, and what you're doing works for you, and what I'm doing works for me.
Exactly.
And what other people do works for them, so it's all like finding what works for you and just doing that.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, yeah.
So when you started reaching out to people that you didn't know for conversations, how did you feel like doing that? Because I know sometimes I feel like I don't want to be a pain to anybody. So how did you feel when you started doing that?
I suppose I don't want you to think that you're a pain, and I don't think you're a pain. No, I don't think anyone thinks you're a pain. That's something I think you should look at, because I think people will feel honoured that you've reached out to them. And that's how I feel when I reach out to people. I'd like people to think it's an honour for somebody to want to share their journey. I have a bit of a philosophy that everyone has a journey, and every journey is worth sharing. And I think I'm fairly comfortable. But when I started to reach out to my friends, just thinking a bit of a passion project, it kind of grew after that. Do I still reach out to people? Absolutely. You know, like the author of this book here, Live Like a Lobster, I reached out to her. I reached out to this guy who the book just fell over. And I suppose I have no fear regarding that now, but I have a lot of agencies as well who message me in Canada, East Coast of Australia. I've got a couple of businesses that reach out and say, we'd like you to interview my client. And that's really nice. So there's one in Toronto. The business is called Kick Up Your Heels Entertainment, and they've given me 3 guests. And that's really nice, because they must think I do a good job. I hope I do a good job for them. And then somebody recently on the East Coast reached out to me, and they've got more guests that would like to come on the show. I think they like the way I showcase their guests and how I hold a safe space for them to speak, and that's really, really, really nice. But at the beginning, I did definitely reach out, but all I did was just a little email or a little message on Instagram, and I still do that all the time, and some reply and some don't, and some haven't got the time of day, and that's fine too. It's not meant to be. But I usually use that to my own motivation and prove myself right. I don't do it to prove anybody else wrong. I just do it to prove myself right, you know.
Yeah, I just feel like sometimes there's so many podcasts there that I just feel like people are gonna be like, oh, not another one.
Yeah, I get it. I you know what, that creeps into me too. That little there's an element of imposter syndrome too, right? You know, why does somebody want to listen to this? Why? I get it, mate. I think we all do. But me and you are the ones who are saying it out loud, and some other people don't, right? But I'm okay with it. If no one tunes in, I've got my own secret diary, and I learn from all of my guests. And if it benefits my life and helps me thrive and not get ill again or depressed or anxious, then so be it. That's cool too. I'm all right with it.
And I think, and also I think it's because I have cerebral palsy, so in my mind, people are just coming on because they feel sorry for me sometimes. I know that's not true, but that's the way my brain works
Yeah.
sometimes.
No, I get it, mate. I get it. I understand why you would think that. I do. Um, I, I saw your podcast and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I've seen some of the guests that you've had on there. How do you get your guests, by the way? Do you reach out to all of them?
Yeah, as I say, everything that happens on the podcast is done by me. So
Yeah.
in terms of booking the guest, I do that myself.
Mm.
I know everybody says I'm a one person operation, but I'm a one person operation.
Yeah. Me too, mate. And it's draining, isn't it? It's very stressful. But the way I look at it, it's our stress, and we've created that stress, and I'm okay with that stress. For me, that's good stress because that means it means something to us. But never. I don't think people feel sorry for you. I think people love what you're doing and that you're putting yourself out there because you know what, there's not many people that will as well at the same time. So I'm proud of you, Ant. I really am.
I really appreciate that. So how you came onto my radar is when you interviewed Josh Robinson. So what made you reach out to Josh for an
Yeah.
interview in particular?
So Josh came to me, reached out to me about his journey because of Ryan, my other guest before him. Ryan's actually a, I don't know if I can say this. Ryan's actually a parent at my son's school. And we met at a birthday party. No, I can say it because we met at a birthday party, my son's birthday party. Ryan Betson, he's called. And he was part of this gaming club, and he'd been part of a Man Shake here in Australia. There's something called the Man Shake about losing weight. It's all around mental health. And those two had been a part of that scene. And I noticed he started to follow and follow me on Twitter and Instagram and so on. And he had a journey about coming out, and it was an unbelievable journey. It was very touching. And we just started talking. And I said, and a lot of them are scared to ask, can I come on your show? And I said, would you like to share your journey? And in my head, I'm like, he doesn't want to share his journey, but he's probably thinking, I want to share the journey, So we like that. So I was like, mate, do you come on? Would you like to share your journey and come on? And he lives in Adelaide. He doesn't even live anywhere near me. He lives 8 hours away, Josh. And we just got online and did the whole pre-chat thing and went through it, and it was great. It was a great journey about his childhood, and somebody went to jail, and it was really, really sad and painful, and the journey of him coming out to his family and to the world, and how he did it on a video, and how it's great journey.
I I was really impressed with I was really impressed with that interview because I thought you did the interview really well. Because when some people are talking about really difficult subjects, it can be quite difficult when to figure out when to jump in with the next question and when to let them talk. I let them explore the emotions.
You're right. That's really nice of you to notice, if I'm honest. No one's ever said that to me before. I'm getting a little teary-eye there, mate, to be honest. No, that's really, really nice for you to say. And I hope it comes across as, holding space for somebody, because I think we need to do that a little bit more, is hold space for somebody and let them, like you just say, process their emotions and come through it. And hopefully that's allowed somebody else, hopefully that episode, Josh has, in particular, has allowed his vulnerabilities, allowed somebody else to be vulnerable too, and do what they need to do in regards to their own personal journey.
Because when it comes to my personal story, I tend to just make videos talking to camera about it, like, for example, about my cerebral palsy, or just about how my disability affects me as a whole.
Do you share your journey at all? Are you quite open about it?
Yeah, I've got a playlist on the channel called my life story, or whatever it's called. Or my story.
You should come onto my podcast then.
I would be honoured, mate. Just let me know. When you got an open slot. And
yeah,
I'll be
mate.
happy to.
Yeah, well, I'm jam-packed till January, but we'll lock in a pre-chat in January and film a little bit after that if you're happy to do that.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
Let's do it. Now, we've put it here on air now. We'll make it happen.
You know people are gonna hold it to this, don't you?
Easy, done. It's already there, mate. I'll put your name up there, and we'll book it in. I promise. That's no lie. We'll make it happen.
Do you know how you, in the beginning, were really open about your experience as a teacher, and how you were basically bullied? Did it take you a long time to be open with people like that?
Believe it or not, no. It was quite the opposite. I've got a border collie dog who has been around in my life for 11 years now, and she got me out. I carried on walking my dog. My dog never was sacrificed just because of my own mental health. And really, probably that's a huge part of, why I didn't go down a very dark route of, because I did have, I wasn't suicidal, but I definitely had those thoughts of what if, but I never crossed my mind to actually go and do it, or even take it to that next step. But Flossie got me out. My dog's called Flossie. Would be on the dog park, and I would be very open to the people that I met. I think it came to a point was, you can see it on people's body language. Oh, here we go again. Or the eyes would roll. Even some very close people in my life. They don't understand the journey. They don't get it. They don't understand the psychological effects of it. I would have rather somebody punched me in the face, because at least I would have known where I stood with somebody, right? But when people are playing a mental game with you, you second guess everything. But I was very, very open. I think, but the problem with being open, when you vent every day, when you go to sleep and you open up the next day, you've released those, I suppose you can class them as undesired emotions, undesired, even though they're still very important and they're a part of our survival. The modern day would perceive this, the sadness, the fear, the anger as undesired emotions, right? But when you vent, you release those emotions through the system, and it's very important. But if you don't change that darkness into a purpose, and you don't cross that line of coming away from it, if you don't take the emotion out of trauma, it never becomes wisdom. So I've learned to do over a very long time is take the emotion out of the trauma, and then you can turn it into wisdom, and that's when you can start to go in the right direction. The book was part of that journey. Even going through that next toxic environment was part of that journey, and the podcast was certainly a part of that journey. But I was very open. But the problem, again, being open, what I didn't mention, sorry, you vent the next day and you repeat the cycle, and all you're doing is releasing those undesired emotions for that particular day. Then when you reset, it starts again. So look, I was very, very open. The problem was I was very open for a very long time, but I didn't turn it into anything. That was the key. So that's when my body had to go through what it went through, because that's when it made. There's a quote from this book, actually. Change only occurs when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of making a change. But when you're almost, I suppose, dead, what greater point can you, that's a great point to start a change, right? I mean, what do you have to go through any more than that, I guess? So I don't know. Yeah, so to answer your question, I was very, very, very open. But that probably hindered me in a different way.
So you mentioned that if you don't, excuse me, so you mentioned that if you don't do anything with it, you're basically regurgitating the same thing over and over again. So what? So when did you realise? Oh, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, and I need to stop quit, and I need to start being more productive. I don't know the right word is productive. Is that the right word? And being proactive.
I know what you mean. I know what you're getting at. Yeah, no, I think the March 22, when I went into hospital and I saw the effects on my family, the potential results of me not being there the next day with my family was the change. When I realized about the emotions, when I started to read about the brain, the human physiology, food, sleep, exercise, nutrition, preventative approaches to, diseases and cognitive decline, etc. That's when I started to learn about my reflection of all those days at the dog parks, me just being open. I was releasing those undesired emotions every day, which is very good, but it was never the catalyst to change. I did need to go through something probably a lot worse, and that hospital visit in March 22 was probably worse than the bullying. But it was a matter of days, right? Whereas the bullying's months upon months, daily stress, chronic stress, and that's really what probably led up to it. But so yeah, the turning point was, I would say, April 22. Yeah.
Do you know that first day when you decided I need to be more productive with this? What steps did you take, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, we talk about this on the podcast, and morning routines comes into it. I carried on walking my dog. I probably shifted it so I'd walk in the morning as well. Early sunlight was a real big catalyst to me. And I was doing this before it became a little bit fashionable. But when I present this to people now, a lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, you jump in the bandwagon." But I was actually doing it before, and my response to this is, we've actually been doing it for millions of years, but it's only really been the last, how many decades since we've invented hot water systems. But I've been doing cold plunges. I started jumping in cold water. I read something in the Daily Mail. Not the best newspaper, but I was reading the Daily Mail on the app before I jumped into a shower, and it said about a guy suffering with anxiety, and he'd been crippled with it for 20 odd years, and he was teaching. I remember in the writing, I think this was the beginning of the science journey, if I'm honest. He started talking about cellular struggle, and what cold water was doing to it, and he was talking about how traumatic cold water is on the skin. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. It's not trauma as like life-changing, but it stresses the body out in a really good way. And he noticed he would start with 10 seconds after a warm shower, and then 20 seconds cold. And then he would add up, and he built himself up to something like 10, 15 minutes. Not that you need to do it for that long. The science has become a bit clearer since then, that the longer the better. The longer is not necessarily better, to get that therapeutic response to the body of what the body needs to go through those stresses. You only need maybe 3.5 minutes. However, he spoke about how he was crippled with anxiety, not even leaving the house, and he noticed over time he would slowly make change in his life, going out 1 step, 2 steps to the bottom of his garden, to the end of the street, and so on, building those things up. And that's what I did. Not that I was not going outside, but it was about letting things slide off my back and not letting things worry me. And because I had the fear of judgment, I had the fear of the unknown because of all those triggers. I didn't when I was going to new schools each day, I was dry reaching in the morning. I was subconsciously very nervous, even though I didn't feel nervous on the outside. But then I found myself, when I go back to that same school the next time, I wouldn't do. But if it was a new school, I would. And that was the fear of judgment. It was in my head. I was paranoid that they all knew my journey, even though I was very open about it. I was very worried about them understanding my journey, and that slowly went away. The more resilient that I came over the next year or two. So yeah, sorry, cold water was the answer. Morning walks, and I started to focus on my sleep. That's why I read this book here, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
So you mentioned there how you suffered with anxiety and basically paranoia. I suffer with that quite a lot. Because sometimes I would just think this in my mind I would just think this is stupid, this is not good enough, and then I'll get paranoid about it, and then I'll get angry about it, and then I just end up getting more and more wound up. And sometimes you just need to take stuff away and just think about it. At the end of the day, is it really worth getting that upset about? And most of the time it isn't.
It's about, I suppose it's about understanding that though, isn't it? And then, but we want you to get to a point where you don't have to understand that it's not like that. We want to get it to a point where you don't want these things to make you paranoid anymore, right? Do you know what I mean? I don't get paranoid over the things I was paranoid over anymore, because I understand my purpose. I understand that I have satisfaction, and I get excited. For me, those are the three things that create happiness. Some people think happiness is an emotion, and I understand that too. But if I'm still sad because something individually has upset me, that doesn't take away my life happiness, because I have purpose, I'm satisfied, and I find things that I do that I enjoy, and they're the three things I think you need to create long-term happiness, even though I still might get mad and upset and angry and so on. But it allows me to come out of it in a really healthy way, or it allows me to prevent going down that paranoid route, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's still something that I'm trying to figure out now, to be honest. Because there's days where I'm like really excited to record stuff, and then there's days where I'm getting annoyed at myself because even though it's perfectly fine, yeah, in my mind it's not good enough. And honestly, sometimes I know it's not that bad, but my brain won't allow me to accept it.
Yeah, and the brain can trick us, and we can prove that by, if you put a VR set on. Have you seen those funny clips on YouTube where the people who've got VR sets on, they're jumping into TVs or they're jumping into walls and tripping over? I mean, that's enough evidence that the brain can trick us, or we're tricking the brain in that scenario. So what you need to do is try and trick your brain. Call that component, that part of your brain, I don't know, Stephen, let's say. Label it as Stephen, and when that thought creeps into your head, say, "Hey, Stephen, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to listen to you, Stephen." And then you can start to, when you categorize that part of your brain as that thought as Stephen, you'll start speaking to Stephen. You'll start saying, "No, Stephen, I don't want that thought today." There's actually somebody I'm interviewing called Wade Hobber. You should check his podcast out. It's called Not Today, Derek. What I've just done there, Stephen, he calls it Derek, and he goes like this: "Not today, Derek." And it's phenomenal. So basically, Derek is the alter ego. Right? So when that creeps into your mind, "Not today, Derek," you should check it out. That'd be perfect for you. Yeah, and I'm interviewing him, and he's going to interview me too.
I would definitely check that out.
Yeah.
So if we go back to your journey on podcast, has there been an episode where you recorded it and you thought afterwards that was heavier than I thought it was gonna be? I know you do obviously you do like a pre-chat, but when you're recording it, sometimes how do I say it? Sometimes you can talk about something one day and you can think, oh, that's not that deep. But another day can be like, that was really heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's been a couple of guests that have held back, understanding the philosophy of my podcast and the understanding the philosophy that I have, that I don't want to do too much. They just do bullet point. They didn't go into too much depth, and I would get off the call and I'd be like, whoa, that went a lot deeper than I thought. I didn't expect them to turn around and say, there was one episode where we talked about the childhood trauma. He ran a Casey, a martial arts business, and what he went through as a child, what he didn't share with me was in the pre-chat, but he did share in the episode, and it was this was one of many, but he would explain in the episode about his mum holding a knife towards his brother's neck at 5 years old, and I was blown away. The mother went and put the children, hurt them, and went and put them near the highway to blame it on them having an accident, a car accident, when it wasn't. It was them hurting the children when they were kids. His body's crippled, but he became one of the biggest martial arts people in Japan and over here in Australia, and built Casey Martial Arts here in Australia, one of the biggest martial arts companies in the Southern Hemisphere. What an incredible journey. And we got off there and we're like, whoa, that was heavy. And he would message me for months later saying how it had changed his life because he'd never been open as much as he was on the podcast. And it ended up being like 3.5 hours. And it was before I even split them up into half. It was a full episode of 3 hours. So people who were tuning in would have to, stay on it. And another one was a teacher, a friend of mine, actually. There were certain things he didn't share in the episode, but he shared with me offline. And I understand why he didn't share it, because, kids might listen to it. But his story was still heavy, as, being bullied by his teacher. The teacher would tie his legs around the chair. He was bullied at school by a high school teacher, and then other things that had happened in his life. And he texted me, even just the other day, saying he had over 300 people reach out to him about that journey. And it got even heavier post-production, with people reaching out to him saying how much he'd saved their life from him sharing his journey. And those two, they've all been heavy, but those two have shared with me through text or phone calls about the aftermath of their episode for them personally, which then adds that emotional, not baggage, but that emotional, I don't know what the right word is, that emotional touch to that journey even more. And you don't see it on camera because it's all post-production, but it makes you feel amazing because their journey is even bigger now, and their purpose is much bigger than the podcast, much bigger than Leading Our Own Way. They should be on stage sharing their journey. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
So about a month ago now, I recorded an episode with a good friend of mine. We've done plenty of episodes in the past, but in the latest episode, Tom, he called Tom. He got a YouTube channel, and he does similar things to what we do, like interviews and stuff. And he revealed that if he didn't start before he started the podcast, he was really unhappy, shall we say, and the podcast really saved his life.
Yeah, wow. I bet it. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It saved his life because he turned his life into a purpose, right?
And I'd say that to say, sometimes, even though you might not think something's gonna provide a deep answer or a deep response, you never know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So how long have you got, mate?
Oh, don't worry about that. You do what you got to do.
Okay. So how did you come up with your colour scheme for the podcast?
By pure accident. Purple is not my favourite colour. Sky blue is my favourite colour. I was on Canva though, And I love tartan shirts. I'll bring. You know what? I've only explained this once before, and I'll explain it today. Hold on. Let me bring it over. Hold on. There's a lot of meaning that goes into this front cover, and not many people know it, and nor people have noticed either. But when you bring it a bit closer, you can see there's actually wood line. There's actually like wood panels. So that's a wood panel, and I came across that wood panel on Canva by accident. Now the road, I've always loved traveling. When I was traveling the world, I used to stand in the middle of highways and roads, country roads, like scenic roads, and stand in the middle and get the symmetry of the road, because it showed beautiful hills in the background like this one. Some would have oceans on the side, some would have trees, big tall trees, especially here in Australia and New Zealand and stuff like that. Beautiful views, and I love the sun shining down. I try and get the right angles. Not that I would class myself as a photographer, but I've got some amazing pictures. And that's why I got this road, right? And I was just playing around with the wood panel, and I put it over the top, and without the picture, this is what it looks like. This side, right? So that's what that template looks like without the picture. And I dimmed the purple, and I loved them both. So I kept them both, and that's why I went with the purple. So you'll see the purple occasions, but that's the front cover. So then the font just went with that. I tried to match it, and so hence the lights behind me as well. I tried to get it purple. I've got two purple ones on this side to bring the tint of the purple to the middle as well. I've always worn tartan shirts since around 21 years old. I've always worn tartan shirts, but I can't wear them on camera because the person who bought me this, Mike, said, don't wear tartan shirts on camera, even though I'd love to. But the wood panel represents, I suppose, the limiting beliefs, getting through the wall, over the fence, through the brick wall, the jumping the fence, however you want to look at it. That means you're leading your own way. You've come past the blockages, the wood, and so on my website below, when I put extra pictures, it actually says beyond the wood, and I give extra pictures from the guests where they're living their life. So I've done the article, I've wrote the piece, put a couple of pictures on there, the artwork, and then below it is a collection of more of their personal pictures, and that section's called Beyond the Wood, and that's the Beyond the Wood, and then that's just me walking on the road. And obviously this acronym, my friend who bought me this, we were texting, we'd come up with the present tense of leading. I always wanted leading, but I've always said that people see things, even though we're looking at the same things, we all look at it and feel it different, even though, if that makes sense. And she, after about a month of talking about the title, she just started texting me LOOW, and I was like, Erin, what does LOOW mean? She went, Andy, that's the acronym of your podcast, Leading Our Own Way. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't know that. So that's why I've put the acronym above Leading Our Own Way, and that's kind of stuck. And I just, and I was listening to Diary of the CEO. He has DOAC on there, doesn't he? If you know who I mean. So yeah, that just stuck there, and that's why all that has come together. So I accidentally came across the branding color of purple, but I just loved it, and it felt right. And you know what? It still does, and I'm not changing it.
The reason why I say that is because I think the colour purple in that, I just find it very relaxing. So I just thought whether that was a conscious effort on your part to make it a nice relaxing colour, or whether it was just coincidence.
Well, that's nice. No one's ever said it's relaxing before, so that's nice. I like that. I appreciate that. But now you know the full meaning. There's actually quite a lot of meaning behind that cover. So I appreciate that's something you've recognised. That's amazing. Thank you.
So I've gathered from our conversation that most things in your life have a specific purpose, like you're very calculated in some of the things that you do. So is that fair or not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I've never looked at it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Oh, you're gonna make me self-reflect even more now. I would never consider myself calculated. Some of the people I've dealt with have been very calculated, but I don't know if I am.
maybe calculated was the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Like everything has a purpose, and everything is thought out meticulously.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in regards to the podcast, this would never have existed if I hadn't have worked on myself to be more present and give my mind and body the nutrients that it needs. I was never creative, not really had a creative bone in my body ever. And then all of a sudden, when I worked on myself, you know, it's evidence, right? You know, you get rid of a lot of stresses, you get rid of a lot of darkness in your life, you put boundaries up in your life towards other people, and you can create some wonderful things. And look, do I dip sometimes? Absolutely. Do I have some rubbish food sometimes? Yeah, I do. But I'm really very conscious about what I put into my body now, and I probably need to focus on my sleep a little bit better more recently. But yeah, I've definitely been through those stages where I really put the right things in there, and the proof is in the pudding, right? This podcast would never have existed if I didn't get to that state, you know.
So if you would have said that if you would have said to 11-year-old you that one day you'll have a podcast, what would the 11-year-old you say?
I think he would have said, "What on earth is a podcast?"
Fair point.
I know what you mean now. No, I know what you mean. No, I'm 42 in about a month's time, mate. How old are you, Ant, by the way?
I'm 29 at the moment, but in December I'm gonna be turning the big 3-0.
Whoa, wait, mate. Am I invited to your 30th birthday party or what?
To be honest, I'm not a big partier like that, so I'm not having like a big party because I'm not a big partier.
That's fair. Well, what date? I'm December. What date are you?
December the 6th.
Oh, I'm December 1st. So I'm 42 on December 1st. But to answer your question, if the podcast were out when I was 11, I probably, I've said this many times actually, not so much the age, but if we go back a year and a half ago, when I first actually started the podcast, if you told me I would be interviewing all these incredible people from all around the world, sharing their personal journeys and creating a safe space for them to go and help somebody else, yeah, I'd have laughed in your face. Completely would have laughed in your face. I would never have thought it would have lasted this long. I would never have thought the legs that it's grown to, even though it's still not skimming. It's only skimming, a very small percentage of the world, let's face it. But having said that, from where it's started from, it's definitely grown, right? It doesn't provide me my income. I do everything myself. I can't afford to pay for a team. I cannot afford to pay for marketing. Everything's been pretty much organic. I've recently paid for some Instagram promotions. But other than that, it's been organic pretty much for a year, nearly a year and a half. And I would have laughed in your face if you'd said that to me 2 years ago. Yeah, 100%. It didn't even enter my head, really.
So, if you have the mentality that you have now, when you're having problems at work, do you think it would have got to that dangerous stage like it did?
What I can guarantee is I won't let that happen again. If that makes sense. Because if I go back to my 32-year-old self, like I mentioned at the beginning, right, I traveled the world. I travelled over 500,000 kilometres. I've done back and forth to England a lot. I've done a lot of the things in my life that I've wanted to do. I've jumped out of planes. I've slept on beaches. I've backpacked around Fox glaciers in New Zealand. I've done some things that I've always wanted to do as a kid. And I consider myself very lucky with the help of my mom, my own personal drive, a friend joining me, my partner, etc. Right? If I was to die, I'd be quite happy with everything I'd done. Don't get me wrong, I've still got a lot to do, and I don't want that to happen. But I'm just saying, I'd be happy until this point. I'd have no regrets. Not even when I was a victim of the things that I'd been through. But that point, I was still a very confident person. So I had a mindset. I had a positive mindset, and somebody with their insecurities, I look back and I go, this is not me. That's on them. They had something missing from their life. They were insecure. They might have not been happy in their own skin. They might not have been happy in their personal life or even their job. It wasn't about me. It wasn't even about me winning the National Teacher of the Year award. I can never prove it was about that anyway. But what I can say is I was a very positive person. If I'd done something wrong, they could have sat with me and said something. They didn't need to go to the depths of destroying me every single day. But the truth came out, and some chose to believe it and some didn't. But the fact of the matter is I've never changed my stance on it. I've stood my ground, and I turned it into the pain into purpose, I guess. Yeah, so there we go.
So I can tell you from my own personal experience, when you're interviewing somebody, especially if you have not had media training or gone on any sort of media course, sometimes you can word things in the wrong way, or you can try to say something, but you can end up saying it in the wrong way. So that has happened with you with any of your interviews?
I don't know. Possibly. And if it has, I've never been pulled up on it. Sometimes I don't even know if I've never said anything controversial, I don't believe. I'm always very conscious about how I say something. And, I'm okay with the erms. A lot of people go, as you get better, you'll lose the erms. But I think a bit of a erm here and there adds a bit of authenticity. It shows that you're real. It shows you're pausing and thinking about it. But I guess you don't have to say erm to think about it. I get all of that. Too many might be annoying, but I don't worry about those things. And it gives me time to think. But I don't think I've said anything where I've had to reword. But it's definitely the forefront of my brain, right? But I just always try. I think I go back to my core values, just always being yourself. I think authenticity is, I like Gary Brecker, the human biologist. He said authenticity is when you speak the truth, but you also believe it. And I'd like to think I'm the same. When I speak, I like to speak the truth, but I believe in it too. What about you? Well, I'll spin that question around to you. Do you ever question yourself on that?
Yeah, because sometimes my brain can work too fast, and as I'm talking, I can be thinking that the next question. So sometimes something will come out, and it will sound like I'm being an arsehole, and I feel guilty. Nobody's ever pulled me up on it. But as I said to you earlier, I overthink a lot, and I get paranoid.
Yeah, no, you mate, you're doing a great job, man. Don't overthink it. I know it's easier said than done, but you know what? You're doing this podcast, and others who are sitting there going, "I wish I could do that." You're doing it, so that's what matters. So don't overthink it. I get it. I do get it, but you'll just cause yourself more stress, won't you? But I think you're doing a great job, man. Your questions have been awesome.
I appreciate that. So how often do you try to record? Is it every day or every week or every couple of weeks?
No, so I actually had September off. I've got the next 9 weeks, 10 weeks already filmed and done. But I try and film. So October and November are fully booked, but Monday night is my basketball night. So I don't. That's why I asked you to shift, because I used to play on a Tuesday night, and they shifted the league from a Tuesday night to a Monday night about a month ago. So I had to contact everyone in a row who's done on a Monday night. I had to shift them to Tuesday night. So it's Tuesday. I was originally filming last night with you, wasn't I? But I asked you kindly the other week if you could move it. So I do apologise for that. But it was it was good reason, I promise. But if you had said no, I'd have stayed committed to that Monday. I would have just not played. And the same with next week. That person who I'm interviewing in Perth, if she said no, I'd say to the team I'm not playing. But going forward, I don't film on a Monday. I will do pre-chats all recordings on a Monday, Tuesday, or a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday. Friday night, obviously, it's Friday night. But my son plays basketball on a Friday night where we travel for hours playing, serious basketball. So we do a lot of traveling Friday nights, and then anyone in America, I'll try and squeeze in at the weekend. But I get the Americas every few months, so that might happen once every 2 months. So yeah, really Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then maybe the weekends, depending on wherever else in the States they are.
Can I be honest? When you said come and move it to Tuesday, I was like, is it gonna be another one of them where we move it, and then they say, I can't do it now.
No, absolutely not, mate. And that did cross my mind. I'm very conscious of how other people think. If you couldn't have moved it, I'd have stuck with it on the Monday. I'm a man of my word, but I just threw it out there to see if you could. And if you couldn't, it would have been fine. I would have done it. And I wish you had actually. I wish you had to said no, because you know what I did last night? Pulled my calf. It's your fault.
Some people have said to me in the past, I understand you're trying to be flexible, but sometimes you just need to try and be a bit firm, because some people they'll keep messing you around, and I've had that in the past where we've made it 4 or 5 times, and every time they set something come up, which I understand, obviously, that after the 4th time, it's a bit like, do they actually want to come on, or have they changed their mind, and then you tell me to tell me.
Agreed. And again, that's on them, right? That's on their insecurity. They should never agree to come in the first place. And I've had 1 or 2 of those for sure. And it happens. And like you say, it is life. But don't let it bother you. Don't let it ruin you. And I appreciate that you allowed me to shift it. But I promise I'm real and I'm here and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. So I'm glad we didn't. I hope that's why I sent you the voice message, to be honest. I didn't want you to read it as a text. I'm hoping that voice message, you sensed the authenticity behind why I was asking. And if you didn't, I would have stuck with it. If you were busy, let's say, filming already, I'd have said, nah, forget it, let's stick with it on the Monday. That's cool.
As I said, I'm pretty flexible, but I feel like sometimes I'm too flexible with people, like I've had people really take advantage of me in the past when it comes to dates and times, and it's like finding that balance between not being like so rigid that you're not flexible, but also knowing when people are taking the mickey out of you.
Yeah, well, mate, just say that you're busy recording for the next month, and if you're interested, let's reassess it for a month's time. I would do that from now on.
Okay. Don't know why I say like that, but as society evolves, obviously AI is becoming more and more prevalent. So my main concern is that in 5 years, the podcasting will become obsolete because people can just use AI to do interviews.
I think people want real people, don't they? They don't want to listen to a robot.
I would say that, but you'll be surprised.
Well, we'll see, right? If we're not big enough to change it, so let's keep producing good podcasts, and let's keep people wanting to see us rather than some fake rubbish.
So you've done interviews with people from all around the world, from all different communities, from all different cultures and things like that. So what made you decide I'm gonna be open to everybody, rather than just sticking down the sport route, for example?
I believe everyone's got a journey, and every journey's worth sharing, and that means whether it's cancer-related, chronic diseases, experts in the field intertwining their journeys into it, mental health advocates, best-selling authors, TEDx talkers, doctors, whoever. Doesn't to me. I just wanted to. I love meeting all types of people, and I want that to be valued in the podcast. So I don't care how big. No one's big or small, but I think you know where I'm coming from. I don't care if you're famous. I don't care if you're an everyday person. Everyone deserves. I always say to the kids at school, everyone deserves to be on the same soil as the next person. So we all deserve to be on this planet. I don't care how much money you've got. I don't care how little money you've got, and I want that to shine in the podcast. And I think I've always stood by that philosophy. Everyone's got a journey, and every journey's worth sharing. And I'll stick to that. That's it. Simple.
I agree with that, but I also think at the beginning, the more you have to be careful that people are coming on for the right reasons and not just to get a bit of clout or just to get a bit of attention. Because, I do get that you will find people come on for the wrong reasons.
Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah, very true. I've not had that yet.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I get from following other podcasters, I can tell when somebody come on because they genuinely want to have a chat, and the people that have come on just for the free promo, so to speak.
Well, yeah, on the flip side of that, some people want you to pay them to appear on their podcast too. Yeah. And I've said no to some people who've wanted money from me. I'm like, no.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
Then you become like an ATM, don't you?
Yeah. I'm not. I wanted a bullying lawyer to come on once. She was a lawyer for people who were being bullied in the workplace. So I thought it'd be good to have a perspective from the legal side of what I went through, even though I didn't get the legal side involved. I did to a certain point, but not at that depth, not where I needed a lawyer. But they didn't want that much money. They wanted $200. But at the time, I didn't have $200 spare in the budget to pay her to come on. And it's probably worth the $200 if I'm honest. But I didn't go down that route, and I've not revisited it. There's some other big people that I've contacted, and they're very thin and thick between. They say yes, but then they don't check the messages, and it's like what you said before. There's a couple of people now who are huge in the areas that I'm very interested in, and I'm not interviewing them because they're huge. I'm interviewing because their journey is actually genuinely pretty cool. It just turns out they're huge, and they've said yes to come on the podcast, but they won't check the messages or they'll fluff around it. But again, even though I keep saying flip side, but even on the flip side of that, I've had some incredibly people with large followings, over 1 million followers, and they were the most genuine people ever. And another thing that I found out is it doesn't matter how many followers you've got, it actually doesn't bring more to the podcast than the next person does. I found when I've interviewed the everyday person, that brings me a lot more viewers than somebody who's well known.
I completely agree with that, because some of my best interviews are with people that some people might see as I hate this term, but quote unquote not relevant. I can't do the quotation marks, but you know what I mean.
I do, yeah. As long as people keep coming and bringing their authenticity, I don't care who they are. If I have Will Smith on here one day, that's cool. I love Will Smith. But if I have, somebody who has changed his life from being on the streets and he's living a good, healthy life now, but he's got a job that makes him happy, and it could be just, doing whatever a low end job, and he's happy. He's leading his own way, right, in his own right. So I'll have him or her on the podcast too.
So, yeah, as I said, sometimes the best conversations are with people that you would not expect, and sometimes when you're hoping to interview the quote unquote people with big, let's just say the people with big followings, sometimes because they have a big following, they're more guarded, which I understand. Obviously, so sometimes interviewing people with less of a following can be more rewarding.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely.
So as we start wrapping it up, because I do want to be respectful of his time, and we need to be grateful to Aaron Lowe. So I've got a couple more questions. Is
Sure,
that
go
okay?
ahead.
So, how long did it take you to find your style as an interviewer?
Whoa. I don't know if I've got a style. And you know what? I honestly try and just be me as much as I can. And I think that's my style, is just Andy White, being Andy White, asking the questions that come to my mind in the moment, and using my life experience as my lived experience as best as I can to intertwine into that. And that's why the more I read, that became a bit of a style. I wanted to read more so I can have these deeper conversations around mental health and disease and prevention of it, cellular level stuff. That became a little bit of my style. So I don't know if I've got a style. I mean, that's a good question. But again, just me being real, just being me, and some people might like it, some people might not. But again, staying true to yourself allows you to live a healthy life, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if we get into the word style and just say confident as an interviewer.
Well, the definition of confidence is understanding yourself as a flawed person, but still holding yourself in high regard. So I have weaknesses. I just some people would perceive that as a weakness, but I'm okay with that. So I understand myself as a flawed person. I'm not perfect. I get things wrong. That's why I didn't care for this podcast not being perfect. The only thing I didn't want to sacrifice was the audio. I wanted people to see the studio grow with me. I wanted people to see me grow as a learner, the books, life learner, so I can part wisdom with my guest. That's where my confidence comes from, but holding myself in high regard. I put boundaries up. I know my worth. I know my purpose. I know what I can offer to the world. And the people say there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. But when I share that definition, there's a very crystal clear line. You take away understanding yourself as a flawed person, you're arrogant. But if you can see yourself as a flawed person, but intertwine it with holding yourself in high regard, that is true confidence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a pretty good explanation.
Thanks.
I would say weird things like that, and then sometimes the person's like, "Thank," and you just said thanks, because sometimes the other person doesn't really know what to say. As I said, I haven't been classically trained as an interviewer. So what some people might call as bad habits, I just embrace them, and I think that's the most important thing. Embrace who you are, as long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. Embrace those weaknesses and let people see it, baby. That's all that matters.
So my penultimate question is, do you know in let's say in like 2 years, or let's say a year, where would you like the podcast to be?
Well, let me see if I can find it here for you. So on a post-it note that's on my table, I've got a goal. I don't know when this goal's going to be, but I visualize it, and this is what I've written. I'll put it up to the screen for you now.
That's a great goal.
I don't need the recognition of that. This is not for me for vanity reasons. I put that there because if I have that as a goal, my brain will be trained to go in that direction. And if I keep that there, it allows me to continue to grow, continues to learn and adapt, change my thumbnails, change my reels, whatever it may be. Learn more about Riverside. If there's something, another feature that comes out, keep improving and rolling with the times. And I believe that I can start to visualize that happening. From last December, top 15%. I mean, that's not huge. It sounds good, but it's, whatever. And then, if I can get top 8% now or something like that, great. You just keep riding. No, you just keep riding the wave.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah.
And for the people listening on audio platforms, or people that, for the people that are listening on audio platforms, it was the number one podcast on Spotify. That's right. That's what the goal is, isn't it?
I don't have to be number one. It would just be nice to be top 1%.
yeah. I'm just saying, cause for the audio listeners, they would not have been able to see what you would.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. So I held up a picture of my post-it note, and my goal says top 1% on Spotify. Yeah. So sorry about that. I forget about that. I do that usually. No, that was good. That was very good.
My last question is, I would like people to remember, and I would say it wrong. Andrew and
Andy, Andrew, it doesn't matter. Yeah, go for it.
I really like people to remember Andrew White as a person.
Good question. I always picture my funeral. I always picture how people would interact at their funeral, and I want them to come and smile, and I want them to smile and wear whatever they want to be and just be themselves, because I want them to always remember that he always tried to connect. That's it. I always try and connect with people, with my friends. I don't even living in Australia and going back to people in England, I'll always phone them. If they've got a missed call from me, they know I'm thinking about them. They don't have to ring me back. They don't have to answer all the time, but if they can see a missed call from me, they know I'm in their thoughts. So if they just remember that, I always tried with them. That's all that matters to me.
I know, and I don't mean to cut you on, but also with social media, it's a lot easier to stay in contact than it would have been 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, isn't it?
It is, but I feel like it's also created a disconnect too. So I don't think people are on the phones as much. It's like I don't speak to some of my close friends because they know I'm okay because of pictures, and they know they can see the podcast and stuff like that. They don't. But for me, that's not true connection. True connection is speaking to me on the phone or doing a FaceTime and when I go home, we always catch up. Of course, it's like we never left. But I think true connection is forming contact, a text message, a phone call, and even that's not fully 100%. 100% would be being with each other face to face, wouldn't it? Of course, but you do what you can with the modern technology, and I think FaceTime, a private conversation, a good laugh between you two, opposed to sharing the same journey as everybody else. So my 10 friends will all see the same picture that I post, or see all the same episode I post. That's not true connection. Connection is the vibe between two people, the energy between two people. So for me, I'd still ring them, even though I can see them on Instagram and Facebook. I like phone calls and I like text messages, and I think that's just a nice way of living,
I'm sorry, I've just thought of another question quickly. So, what do your family think of the podcast? Do they follow your stuff or not really?
Good question. I don't know. They know it exists. They'll throw a little comment here and there saying, "Oh, it looks like it's doing well. Looks like it look like you're enjoying it," but they've never said that they've listened to an episode. They've never told me they enjoy it. They've never. I don't know. It's nice when they say it looks like it's doing very well, and I don't go into too much detail unless they ask. But I don't know if they listen to an episode, if I'm being honest. That's okay. Might not be for them.
So, Andy, I want to give you the floor, and I want to give you the opportunity to promote going. I want to give you the opportunity to promote the podcast and anything else that you would like to promote or share.
Oh, that's amazing. No, if people like listening to you as well, it's the same concept as you, just meeting amazing people, sharing incredible journeys. And I always believe if we can help one person change their life, whether it's, prevention or change where they've been or change of careers. But my podcast is called Leading Our Own Way. And it's Leading Our Own Way across all the platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of those typical ones. And anyone wants to share a journey, my email is andrew@leadingourownway.com. And go and follow on Spotify, Apple and YouTube if you want, and watch our wonderful faces talk away. And hopefully we can inspire someone. Even if everything's damned in your life, you might just enjoy a good journey,
I completely agree with that. So I want to say thank you to everybody for giving us some of your time. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope everybody having a good day and staying as safe as they can. And thank you for the support. If you would like to follow me on a personal level on most platforms, it's Anthony Talk #1. But on TikTok, it's just Anthony Talk. So thank you for giving us some of your time. Have a good day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you again, Anthony, for letting me come on your show.
No worries.